Wow, Bitcoin went crazy yesterday. Now, when it was pretty clear that Trump would bring about a new approach to the crypto industry, or it was pretty clear that he would if he won, Bitcoin reacted violently to the upside when it was becoming clear that Trump had sealed an electoral win for the US presidency. Now, this could be a complete shift of US policy towards crypto, which has been very unfriendly towards crypto in trying to shut out American dollars from crypto and making it really difficult for those in the US to participate in crypto. Well, Bitcoin reacted so strongly to the upside yesterday, it was shocking. And a few other altcoins also reacted very positively. Now, my question is this the beginning of a couple month run to the upside before settling down a little bit and then the bigger run next year? Well, we'll take a look at the price charts and see what we can see from the charts themselves. Welcome to the Crypto Rain channel and our family. Now, if you, like me, came into crypto because you realize the potential here for life-changing gains over a 4 to 8 year period, and you're looking for discussions on becoming a solid, unshakable, savage crypto investor, like a Navy SEAL of crypto investing, you're in exactly the right place and with the right family, the Rainmaker family. Now, the reason I created this channel is because I was once new to crypto 7 years ago. And back then I was looking for a crypto channel or a group that understood crypto as an investment and discussed the important things like investment cycles, specific projects, the pros and cons of those projects, the risks, the guess at upside if it came together well. And I didn't find that, so we created it. And I say we because it's not just me anymore. It's a family of Rainmakers, and you will see them here in the chat already. You'll see some in our free Telegram group. There's a link to that below, and you will definitely find them in our private Patreon group that allows you access to the Rainmaker private Discord. Now, if you join the Patreon, don't forget to take the next step to join the Discord, because in the Discord is where all the chat is and the interaction with the Rainmaker family. Now, this is where the best discussion and the best info is, and there are many other extra benefits that you really won't find out until you join. Do note, I'm not a financial advisor. I'm a crypto investor myself. Paul from DEVVE is joining us again today because it's Wednesday. And do note, he invests in many different markets, but none of this would be taken as financial advice. Well, if you haven't already, make it rain on that like button and strap in for the show, because today's Wednesday and Paul from DEVVE is here. Thanks so much for joining us, Paul.
It's a pleasure as always, and some days are more interesting than others, but they're all interesting in their own way. But obviously today being the election day, it's very, very good for the markets. Lots being resolved. We've got the triple whammy of the markets liking the uncertainty ending. We've got a Trump victory, which was very positive for the markets last time, and it's just reflected in what's gone on here again. And obviously a Republican victory, which the markets like anyway. So markets looked like we were going to get a Republican victory or Trump victory anyway, in the build up in the way risk on has been doing so well. But to be fair, I think the polls beforehand were quite balanced. So it wasn't completely clear from a political point of view, but from a markets point of view, it did look like it was the more likely outcome. And it was something that, you know, if you were betting on the outcome, I think a Trump victory would have been the way to go. And perhaps the language that we've been tracking over the past few weeks about the potential for what would happen seemed to suggest that. But as far as the charts go, I mean, it looked pretty much like we were going to get some bullish continuation of the trend. And the thing with Bitcoin is it could just be the start of a move, not the end of it, which is really interesting. A technical breakout the size of the one that we've seen, we were looking for a break into a new high, but we've also been talking about 100,000 and beyond. So it looks like we're on course for that. Clearly it won't be a one-way street, but there are many people, I think, in the sentiment world of Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies have been saying, well, this is the top. And when we've had this grind since March, they've just kind of gone on the sidelines. I think psychologically it's going to be very difficult for them to enter the market here as it's gone into a new high. I mean, that's something that technically we look for and we go with, but I can understand that psychologically people won't want to do that, which is a good sign because it means that we're not at that all-time at the point when the market becomes, inverted commas, dangerous. And I think that's for further down the curve, and we'll talk about that when we get to it, or that bridge when we come to cross it. But for now, it's very nice to see that the markets are responding so positively and in the way that we've kind of been anticipating. And it's also very good for Definity as a business, I have to say. You know, this is pretty much what has been built for this market environment, for what's coming. And it looks like all these pieces are falling into place.
Yeah, I'm really excited. We're still early in crypto, and you can tell that by many of the altcoins still down. Bitcoin just broke its previous high, and it's forming a little pattern that's interesting we'll look at today. Boy, that was juicy. I was paying attention a little bit to news and stuff, going about my day yesterday, and I thought, let me check on what's going on with Bitcoin. And holy cow, right as it became clear that like Trump might win, Bitcoin just skyrocketed up. It was crazy. And I was like, holy cow. Well, I'm not the only one who thinks a Trump victory would be very beneficial to crypto.
Yeah, it's really interesting, isn't it? This is also one of the things about the markets that you can never go back in time and say what would have happened if Kamala Harris had won, and see what happens to the market, because technically it looked like it was going to happen anyway. But again, it's a lesson in how the market starts to anticipate the future, like way before people cotton on that something's going to happen. And that's why I like looking at charts, because they tend to be ahead of the curve, ahead of the news, and the news tends to confirm what the charts were saying. And it seems to be the case. But as an intellectual exercise, I'd be interested, and I know it's not possible to do it, but it'd be interesting to see whether or how much by the markets would go up, just because there is an uncertainty relief once the election's over, and then you can get back to the business of running the country and doing what's best for the economy. All those things, all those uncertainties, businesses hate uncertainty because they don't know how to plan for it. The business can deal with bad news. If they know that there's a problem, they can start firefighting that problem or dealing with that problem. But if they don't know where the problem's going to be, it's very difficult. And that's the problem with politics and political uncertainty. You don't know what you're going to have to hedge with, or you don't know how you're going to have to deal with a problem, or what the problem might be until it's resolved. So there's an element of, now this is out of the way, we can concentrate on business, which is really good, which I think you would have get some form of rally with a Democrat win, but just not so much. The politics tends to attenuate or amplify moves rather than prevent moves. So I think either way the markets would have gone up, but it's just a question of how much and how quickly. But yeah, it's a really good sign that the main cryptocurrency is moving up, and there should be some trickle down support into all the others, or most of the others. We can't say all, because obviously not everything goes up all the time. But there will be this secondary reaction. It might take a few weeks or months, but it will flow into it, I think, and keep the space, interesting into next year.
Thank you for the super chat, Bill Gardner. Let's go Trump, president number 47, 45 and 47. One of the reasons I think the market's reacting so positively to him is, under the current administration, the U.S. has been very ambiguous. The SEC has been very ambiguous as to what the rules are. Like Paul was talking about, the uncertainty. Like, it is unclear. And when companies have reached out over the past 6 years to the SEC for guidance, often they're then served with a Wells notice. So it's kind of like if you go knocking on the door asking them to clarify things, they then step into your building and issue you fines and notices that we're going to sue you. So it's kind of like, don't come talk to us, or you'll put us on your radar. You'll put yourself on our radar, and we're not going to clarify for you either. And it's almost like I know that they say that they're protecting people. It's been a very anti-crypto push. Why? I don't know. People say the SEC is controlled by Goldman Sachs and like those kind of interests. And look, Gary Gensler worked at Goldman Sachs, and huge size there. I don't know if Goldman Sachs is a problem, Elizabeth Warren is a problem. I don't know who, but it's been very clear their agenda is very anti-crypto. Why? Because they haven't been passing or giving any regulatory clarity. And you only do that when you want to be able to stop everything, right? Because the market doesn't like uncertainty. And so Trump's been very clear that the first thing he's going to do is get rid of Gary Gensler. And I expect he'll appoint somebody very pro-crypto. And so then you'll get a complete change of tune in the SEC. So they'll be coming out trying to make it clear what the rules are and what the rules aren't so that people can be protected while letting crypto grow. Under the current SEC, no guidance was given and they didn't protect people. And it was very like an anti-crypto bent to it. So I think it'll unleash American investment in crypto, and that maybe even this time we have a super cycle, and it's good to see that coming together. I'm excited. Clearly, some people in here want to talk about OMI, and we will talk about it. I will bring up your comments then. I will add OMI to the list.
Yeah.
Best news of the day. Gary Gensler, you are dismissed. Justin B says, let's go. Web Zombie is joining again. He joined us yesterday. We had a big AMA with OneChain, one of the partners to the channel, with their CEO, and got some great updates from Temujin on what's going on with OneChain. So if you haven't seen that video, definitely check it out. Justin B says, translation, full send DEFX. Howard's got a thing about OMI. We'll talk about that later. I would love to talk about OMI. Cool. Let's talk first about some of the markets, some of the things that you're keeping an eye on, Paul. You keep an eye on many, many markets. They're outside of crypto, but really have an effect on the crypto market. And I think it gives the audience a greater perspective on where all the money flows go outside of crypto. And when they start reversing, that money often does flow into crypto.
Yeah, let's go. So what we've got start show is always the outlook for the American stock markets. Dow Jones bullish, trend is up. We've talked about that week after week, but the trend is still up and it's accelerating. Certainly it has today. Yeah, you might say it's overdone and needs a pullback, possibly, but the trend is still up and off we go. Dow Jones Transportation Index. Remember, I was saying that this was building up for a squeeze into an all-time high, and it's lagging, but it's still moving up. This is a really nice technical pattern, and it should have more to go. I would say 22,000, perhaps 25. We shall see. Nasdaq underperformed, but that didn't mean that it was bearish. It just meant that it was consolidating, ready to break into a new high. We're just pressing that right now. Again, this is a really nice technical pattern. I mean, individually, there are certain stocks that I think will be very interesting. I guess looking at something like Tesla would be interesting at this point, for obvious reasons. But the S&P 500 still in an upward trend and reflecting what's going on broadly in the economy and how things should be good for next year. Remember, we've got an interest rate cut potentially not potentially. There will be a 25 basis point cut tomorrow. It's the 7th tomorrow. And because the markets have gone up so fast, we've had a little bit of a rein back on how much whether there'll be another 25 in December. But still potentially another one in January. So the profile for rates is still to the downside, even though the markets are running really hot, and we know why that will be. So small cap index, this is really important. I've said this a few times. Small cap stocks, I think, will benefit from AI, services, the trickle down effect of, the people that are selling the tools in the gold rush. Obviously they make money, but this technology will help everybody. It will streamline businesses and make businesses a lot of money across the curve, or save money. And this is what's being reflected in the fact that interest rates are going to go down really does help smaller companies more. And so many people I've spoken to have said how small cap stocks shouldn't do well, they should go down. They were really bearish, and they've just continually looked technically like they're going to go higher. And it does look here again that we're going to break into a new high and accelerate further. So that's a really good sign. So all these things, putting them together, are just supporting the broader view that the markets are expecting better times into next year. And it's not necessarily for now, it's how they're anticipating the future. So if we were looking for a crash in Bitcoin, I would be expecting something to be showing up on the radar in these markets, because they're very sensitive to interest rate moves and to flows of risk. People take risks in stocks first. I mean, of course, they do take a lot of risk in cryptocurrencies, but this is a more established market. So we talked about the VIX being elevated, and it was elevated. Remember last week I was saying equities are up, but the VIX is up, and this is unusual. But it was unusual because the market was expecting a very big move, possibly in either direction. Even though the charts look bullish, the option prices reflected the increased cost that something big could happen, even though obviously the trend was up. So that's starting to come down again, which is a good sign. And as far as Asia goes, just a consolidation going on there. Hong Kong, China, they should be moving up as well. But with the big move that's happened that you've probably seen on the headlines anyway, and it's very interesting that this is against what the crypto markets are doing, is the dollar move. So the dollar's moved up a lot, yet crypto's moved up. So the interesting thing about crypto from a fund management point of view is it seems to be a non-correlated asset, in the sense that sometimes it goes up with stocks and sometimes it doesn't. And sometimes it goes up with the dollar and sometimes it doesn't. So generally speaking, it makes it a very interesting asset class. And that's why I think it will attract more trading. But the dollar index, we've spoken about how it looked really bearish down here as it was hitting 100. I thought it would break and it would complete this pattern. We'd waited quite a long time for that to happen, in the same way we waited a long time for crypto to break into, or Bitcoin to break into a new high. It looks like we're going to have to be more patient again, and it's had a very solid move to the upside, but this could well be the end of this move. And something that everyone seems to have forgotten about is the geopolitical risk in the Middle East. I mean, it's just obviously buried now from the headlines, but that's still an ongoing issue that has got a dollar premium on it. So as far as the technicals goes, this is within the range. If it stopped around here, or even went up a little bit more to 105.9, it would still be in a range, but with declining highs. So it would make sense technically if this gets reversed quickly, and by the end of the week we're back closer to 103 and heading towards 100 as we move into December. But we shall see. We'll see what happens with the dollar. But I can understand why it's gone up today. There's a knee-jerk reaction. It does seem a little bit overdone, but from a risk-on perspective, I'd expect that to go down. But onto the big move, the interesting one, the one that we all are looking for, is this breakout from resistance. Someone was asking a couple of weeks ago about a bearish rising wedge. I think you can see why that's not the right pattern. Break into new high. It did actually touch the previous high as key resistance, and now it's just broken through it. Personally, I don't like it when the markets move and the news follows. And what I mean by that is, I'd rather that there wasn't bullish news. No, that sounds really strange, but let me explain. Markets tend to move up when they're trending. They tend to move really nice and quietly. And if you get a bullish piece of information and the market moves up, sometimes that can be a bit of a trap, and because it would encourage everyone to jump in and buy. But I think on this occasion, because there were so many people in this area like getting out of crypto, and because it is now at a new high, I don't think it's going to work like that now. I think it would just, they'll be waiting for a pullback to get in, and that might be the pullback that doesn't come. So a break towards 100,000 is now, I believe, on the cards, and we've waited long enough in this range for it to be a valid kind of squeeze that will that that 100,000 has been talked about a lot, and it was a bit premature before, but now it looks like the market waited long enough and off we go. But the other thing is, it would be good if Ethereum can get through this key level, this 2817 here. It's still not done that yet, and for a really good bull market, I'd like to see multiple markets moving in synchronicity, and it is important that this moves up too, and also Solana as well. Solana is on the top of the list, but that looks like it's ready to go as well. So you might get some pullback in Bitcoin and then a pickup in ETH and Solana. So I'd definitely be looking out for those majors to follow suit.
Yeah, it's been interesting watching their trading, right? So ETH, a lot of people right now are questioning whether ETH will stay around for the long term, and ETH's been out of the narrative. So its price action has been really just trading sideways and a little bit downward. But I think ETH is here to stay, at least for the short to midterm, probably even long term. It's so much is built on it that I think it's going to be around for forever. Solana has a lot of development on it. So Solana, I'm not invested in Solana. It was an amazing investment when it went below $9, and it's run all the way up 20x from there. And the reason I'm not in is I don't chase green candles, but I think Solana goes higher from here. I think it goes to 500, maybe even $1,000 this bull run, and that it's got further upside to go. And for many investors that are, for them to get a 3x from here, they'd be excited as can be. I'm just in the riskier stuff. So I think Solana is a great one to watch because it is an indication of altcoin strength. Yeah, so much is going on. Like, it was interesting. We had a few altcoins pop yesterday. We're going to cover some of them. And most of them really won't blow off till we see much higher Bitcoin. And what usually happens is a lot of money comes in, is Bitcoin breaks highs that people couldn't fathom before, like psychological highs. So say it hits $100,000. People who had kind of miscategorized Bitcoin, didn't understand what it was, and thought, oh, I'll look into that later. All of a sudden it hits them like, oh my gosh, something is going on with Bitcoin because it hit 100,000, and shoot, I knew I should have looked into it. Now I'm going to look into it. And they look deeper and they start figuring out what Bitcoin is. They start figuring out what this crypto revolution is and this Web3 revolution. And they say, oh my gosh. And then they get FOMO and they throw in massive amounts of money, not only to Bitcoin, first to Bitcoin, and then to other things. And we just get a massive run up. And this happens every 4 years. And we're building towards that. And it's as predictable as any market cycle ever has been. It's not completely predictable, but the probabilities are really, really strong. And so I'm just playing those probabilities, and I'm really excited for this coming year. Well, we have a few pulled up. Let's take a look first at DEVVE. DEVVE had a really big pop yesterday, and let's take a look at what DEVVE's been doing. We lost your audio, Paul.
Sorry. Yeah. DEVVE, I believe last time we were talking about it holding this support and making a base with a trigger around 50 cents. And the headline here is, it's basing, it's looking interesting, much more interesting than it was when it was just doing this constant grind lower. We got the first step here, and it put a higher shelf low in here, which was what we were discussing before, and how it was on the buy list because of it. It is now moving up nicely, and I think the big level that it needs to take out is this 50 cents point, which it should do. Nothing's guaranteed, but it's this is the probabilities game that we're playing. So technically, I think it's looking interesting, and I would say it's on the buy list. So This area here, you can see where it struggled on the way down. So there's lots of buying, and that's slowly turned into a continued bearish trend. So there is a bit of wood to chop just ahead around 0.42. Remember, it spiked up to this almost 50 cents point. So I'd say 0.42 is where there could be some resistance. But by the same token, once it's got through that, then it should really open up the upside for a broader trend.
Oh, there we go. I don't know what caused it to pop like that, but holy cow, that pop off yesterday was quite big. Let me share my screen. So we got DEVVE here. We're going to look at a CoinGecko or CoinMarketCap as well. I often like CoinGecko for some things and CoinMarketCap for other things. But we see that in the early run up, before it was tracked, it actually came out at 40 cents, dropped to 30 cents, and then ran all the way up here. So it coming back to hitting 40 cents again is a really important number. It launched at 40 cents. So a lot of people bought it at 40 cents or more. There are some pre-sale investors that have it for cheaper than that, but a lot of the pre-sale investment has sold out during this period. And most of them were in profits for a huge amount of this period. And so it was great seeing it pop off. We look at the last 7 days. I mean, it went from 25 cents up to 40 cents over this past week. And it's doing some good things in the last 24 hours. It's got some pretty low liquidity. And so that's why we see the trading pattern trading like this, not so smooth. It's because the liquidity is so low on the different markets that it's on. But yeah, DEVVE popping off yesterday. Let's take a look on CoinMarketCap. Let me pull it up because there's critical information on there that CoinMarketCap does a much better job of showcasing. It has to do with the token unlocks. Now, it's got one more big token unlock happening early next month at the end of this month, and then the token unlocks fall off tremendously. So the downward price pressure is just about done, and then it looks like it's getting ready to run. So good job to the DEVVE team. I'm heavily biased towards this one. I have huge holdings. I own a small bit in the company underlying it. So realize that I'm biased. There's a reason, though, that I'm so biased towards this, that I'm heavily invested in it. So Paul said, with what it's showing, a buy, and I like it as a buy. It's not as cheap as it was, and I love things cheap. I think it's getting ready to run, though. So will you get it cheaper than here? I don't know. Maybe 40% chance you might get a cheaper price from here, but those cheaper prices might be done. It's still a deal at 37 cents, just not as much of a deal as it was back here at 14 cents, which I was screaming that this is a crazy low deal and do not pass it up. Fundamentally, I mean, the market cap on this project is so low for being a layer 1 blockchain with the kind of transaction speeds that it has. Its market cap being at 24 million, even after the run up, is still so cheap. All right, let's take a look next at games for a living, which popped off a little bit yesterday. I have not packed and loaded up the bags on games for a living. I'm hoping something else pumps first that I can really make some significant buys in games for a living.
Yeah, I was just checking my chart here, and this was really good support around the 1 cent area. This breakout point was matched here. I think that's what we were talking about last time, but I think it might have gone up a bit more because I don't think this is an up-to-date chart. So let me just have a look. Yeah, I don't know that this does not look up to date. Yeah, that's not up to date. Hold on just a moment.
There you go.
Yeah.
Should.
So we could just get the daily chart. Yeah, so okay. So from there, Actually, it's quite a nice chart. Yeah, so from that point that I think we were looking at, why does that look different? Yeah, this looks slightly different. Sorry to keep you holding there, but yeah, it has popped off, but it's not popped off that much. But it's I'm just looking at where that big support was in relation to the chart. Looks completely different. I don't know what's gone on there. That's slightly confusing. Anyway, there's a lot of good support where it has rallied from. I don't think it's rallied enough for it to have fully got out of the danger zone. Because remember, this area here, just below the 1 cent area, that's such big support. I mean, it's tested it and tested it, and it did have this good rally here. That's a great thing to see, but it's also, now I remember what we were talking about last time, it's 100% retraced that, and so one has to be a bit careful when it comes all the way back to that support point. I mean, I think there's some good long-term reasons to think that this might go higher, and at this point, it is highly speculative to trade so close to the stop. So, as what I would say a position trader might just get in and put a stop slightly below here. You know your risk. It's a small amount. If it goes wrong, you're out. As technical patterns go, I prefer to see more evidence that the trend is in operation rather than trying to pick up against this support. It's different strategies, really. It depends what works for you. For me, I think I would personally wait at this point until I don't mind picking it up as it's going higher, because there's more evidence that it's going to go further for longer. So, that's just me personally, but I can see why people might like it at this level. It's just not for me at this point.
Yes, you and I often disagree because the timing and the windows that we look at are different, but we don't disagree in this case. Now, Game for a Living, I like this one a lot fundamentally, and I look for teams where I feel like the team is really strong and the narrative is really strong. And I think blockchain gaming is going to have a massive narrative run this bull run. Like games like Off the Grid by Gunzilla, there isn't a Gunzilla token that's tradable yet. That'll be coming out soon. And Off the Grid is, I think, off the charts good for a blockchain game. Compared to the other blockchain games out there, we have Illuvium that's really good within its niche. Off the Grid is good enough that people that know nothing about blockchain gaming will play it and come into it. In fact, many have. It's still early release, so there's some bugs and some optimization needs to be fixed. But I spent a good amount of time playing that game the last 3 weeks. It's incredibly good. It's good enough that it can get worldwide adoption, especially as people realize the true value of ownership. And they did something special in the game and Off the Grid that I think is why blockchain gaming takes over the world. And what it is that the players earn the value. So in order to get the NFTs related to the game, you have to play the game. And you don't even have to pay for the monthly pro subscription to be able to get those NFTs. Now, to be able to sell them on the marketplace, you do have to get this subscription, but you could accumulate over a long period of time and then pay $12 1 month so you could put things on the marketplace. So I like that the actual gamers can accrue the value through playing. And I think games that set it up that way will massively benefit. Of course, there's some transaction fees charged when people sell things, and that's how the game maker makes some revenues, as well as the pro subscription. So I feel like the revenue model was set up in a way that won't feel too intrusive to the gamers. Where a lot of blockchain games have gone wrong in the past is really just greed and seeking all this upfront money and value and sucking all the value away from those actually playing the game, rather than giving the value to them and just taking a small piece of it as that's transacted. Now, what I like about Game for a Living is it also has a really strong team. Like Gunzilla Games was run by a bunch of gaming people coming in, building a game that happens to be on the blockchain. Game for a Living is another team like that. They're gaming industry experts building it. Now, we haven't seen what their game is going to look like yet. So it's still pretty early stages. And I've been looking for a good entry point on this. And it looks attractive. I just think it's going to get more attractive. And so that's why I'm waiting. So we're seeing this nice decline in prices, and some people freak out when they see this. I like buying low. So I haven't made my entries yet, though it's not that these are bad entries. I just think it's going to get better. And part of the reason I think it's going to get better is CoinMarketCap once again delivers some really good information with this token vesting curve. Now, it was really steep here and it's fallen off some, but realize that every month 1% of the max supply still continues to be released, and that will continue to put some sell pressure. Now, as long as blockchain gaming's narrative doesn't go crazy, I think Game for a Living continues to get cheaper in the short term, and that's what I'm looking for a juicy pickup. Now, I'm 100% allocated already in crypto, so for me to make a big buy in this, I'll need to be able to take profits on something else, and I only sell my positions when it's clear that they are going down in flames, or, which rarely happens, but it does happen every once in a while, or they're way up, and I can roll something that say had a 10 or 20x or 30x profit and roll it into something that I still think has 100x potential. Cool. So their market cap's at 37 million. Their circulating supply looks like 31% of their tokens are in circulation. Cool. We're continuing to see 1% vest every month as shown by CoinMarketCap. So I'm watching this one closely and looking for a good entry point. Appreciate one of our Rainmaker families, one of our gold members in the private Discord, who brought this to my attention many months ago. And when he brought it to my attention, it was already running up, and I was like, crap, it was already up here. And I was like, I just don't chase green candles. So I'm going to wait patiently and hope that this one comes down, but it has all the markers for what I look for in a type of project I can be interested in. I just need to wait for it to get cheaper. If anyone has ties to the project, I would love to bring them on the channel and interview them and get to know their team even better. But I think the price gets cheaper in the short term, and I like buying cheap. And so, like Paul, I agree in waiting, right? So he waits till it's clear it's running. I wait till feel like it's clear that the value proposition is so strong I can't pass it up. And it's getting there. All right, let's take a look at Senate. Senate did a little bit of run this last 24 hours, so let's take a look at that. That's definitely one of the ones I've been tracking.
Yeah, so Senate, this is the one I've had on the wait list. It's made a small base here, which is good. It's a good sign. It's had its first leg breaking the pattern of this downward trend. And the August 5th low that I always refer to, where we had that panic sell-off in all the risk-on markets. But it hasn't quite done enough to get really bullish in my view. I'd need it to cross through this 0.6. So again, this is one where I can understand a speculative buy because you have clear defined support with which, if it breaks, you can parachute out, which is what I look for on the charts. But as far as like, is this the moment when it moves? Could be, but I'd need to wait for a bigger or more evidence of a base before I get in. So for me, it's a wait. But I think it's better than some. It's at least it's put this higher level in here compared to here. That's a good sign. And if it, as I say, takes this resistance out, it will look technically very different. So it may be close to doing it. We'll have to pick up on it in a few weeks' time. But for me, it's a wait for the moment.
Awesome. Yeah, I like the price, and I think it may get a little bit better. It's hard to tell. Overall, let's look at what's happening in the chart. $5 million market cap. So we're looking at this on CoinMarketCap. And what I would really love to see, but we don't see here, is what the token vesting looks like. Now, it's been out for a long period of time, so many of the tokens have been vested. We see evidence of that in the $5 million market cap versus an $8 million fully diluted value, which means what, like about 2/3 of the tokens are in circulation already. So a lot of the tokens have been in circulation, over half of them, and they continue to come into circulation is my guess. But there's not tons of vesting pressure there. what I'm looking for is, now, if you remember on this channel, I covered this as a fundamental buy right in this zone. I was just like, this is so cheap. The value proposition is so strong. It's really, really cheap. And then it took off and went 10x from there. Well, it's pulled back 80% from those highs, and it's a pretty juicy price. Now, will it get cheaper than here? I'd say maybe 50% chance. It's pretty cheap now. I think it's a value buy, and I hope that it gets even cheaper from here. So it's a pretty decent buy with the market cap at 5 million. Now, what is this? This is another blockchain gaming project. This is related to the Cetus game, but they have two tokens. They have the Senate token and the Cetus token. I like the value proposition on the Senate token a little bit better. The market cap is lower. It doesn't get quite the same visibility because it doesn't have the same name as the game makers themselves. So sometimes people, when they FOMO into Cetus, they just buy the Cetus token. I think Senate's value proposition is just a little bit stronger. So I often look at the Senate token instead. So Senate, I'd say it's a small buy, hoping that it gets cheaper for a bigger buy. But I think the value's there even at these prices. Let's take a look at Uniswap, which did a run.
Yeah. So Uniswap, here we go. Let's see. So it's had a bounce. Hang on, that can't be correct, can it? 1st November? Yeah, maybe it is. It's nothing that's jumping out. That's why I'm sort of questioning the bounce. The thing is, when things have moved so much from a percentage terms, yet they're not making that much impact on the chart, it's obviously a big move, but it's not such a big move compared to where it's been, if that makes sense. So huge percentages, yes. Changing the way the chart looks, not necessarily. I'll see if I can get it on here, because I prefer this style of chart. Yeah, so yeah, as we can see, it has moved big percentage, exactly what I was saying. But yet the impression on the chart is good. It is bullish. It's printing a significant low, a higher low. We're moving up. That's all really good. I think a small buy here is justified. But the overall chart is still within this range. So that's why I'm being slightly cautious. And we need to see it eject from this area here, so we can start talking about a move into towards this 40 level, which, into next year, I think it will be well on its way. So I'm not arguing with the timing. It's just whether it's right now or whether it's going to be, grinding around, and then it's one that gets picked up in the second or the third wave. So I'm just not sure about that at this point. So, so what do I call it? I think with everything looking so good on macro, it's really tempting just to say everything's a buy, and then just sort of shut your eyes and see what happens next year. But I'm trying to be a bit more nuanced on this. So I think I will wait on this, even though it does look like it is going to press higher. I would like to see it get through 10, which is where it struggled here. And I would also like to see it breaking this pattern of lower highs as well, which I think it will do. But I'm just going to say I want to see that being broken. But overall, I think the most important feature of this chart is the way these lows are starting to print high and curve. So that's usually the sign that things are going to trend. But I'm just going to wait for that one final piece in the jigsaw before saying it is a buy.
Yeah, Uniswap's been under attack by the US SEC as they've gone after DeFi. So I think part of the reason it really popped off yesterday was that I think there's current ongoing litigation from the SEC against them. And with Gary Gensler getting replaced, probably the SEC will have to drop that if Gary Gensler is replaced, and you get a much more favorable crypto person at the SEC. Gary Gensler is often the deciding vote against crypto companies. And so if they replace him and maybe even some other people, then a lot of this litigation will probably go away. And instead of litigating in order to give clarity, they actually just give guidelines and clarity, and then actually just go after the bad actors, because Uniswap is not one of the bad actors out there. All right. Catching up on some more comments. Kevin Hawthorne says, good morning. Justin says, U.S. FIAS. We can add FIAS to the list. Chris Ashbay says, morning rainmakers. I'm just now joining. Thanks for coming on, Paul. Forgive me if you've already covered this, but how does a 10-year U.S. Treasury affect crypto? Seems to be racing higher, which is the opposite of where the Fed was intending to have it move.
Yeah, that's a really good question. And to answer that, let's have a look at where yields were or are. The point is, it's not a problem until it was a problem. And what I mean by that is the fact that the 10-year yields are moving up just suggests that the economy is going to be strong, and next year there's going to be a lot of demand for money because everything is bullish. So it's not a problem at this stage. And as we can see, the dollar can rally and crypto can still go up a hell of a lot. So they're slightly non-correlated was the bit that you missed from this morning. Although I didn't specifically talk about yields, I talked about the dollar. Yields go up, dollar goes up. But it's so what we've had in terms of the curve is we've had the curve looking downwards. So in other words, as far out we go, interest rates were lower than long-term rates were lower than short-term rates, which is usually a sign that a recession's coming, but not in this case, and that wasn't what we were expecting. So what you're seeing now is a normalization where long-term rates are now coming back up to represent the positive nature of the economy, and short-term rates are coming down. So you're getting this what's called bull steepening of rates. So at the moment, it's a positive sign, and it's just to reflect the strength in the economy. But at some point, this is going to get pushed too far, and long-term rates are going to start to bite too hard just when the markets are reaching their peak, and then that's where the trouble sets in. But I think that's for further down the curve. But it's an interesting thing that you've noted there, and it's an important thing. It's why I look at so many markets, because that you can spot trouble in different markets from the one that you're actually trading, and the signs can come from different places. But that is an important move that we're seeing, and it's important, but it's positive for the moment. And as I say, later on, and it could be in a year's time, could be longer, but at some point we will talk about that being a problem.
Yeah, good insights, Chris. Chris always with the deep questions. All right, let's take a look. We have SUI to look at. Now, SUI is a blue chip, and if you've been in my audience for a while, you know that I'm not investing in a lot of blue chips. Doesn't mean I don't watch them, doesn't mean I don't like them. And SUI is one of the projects I really like. I even had an option. SUI was looking for people with a YouTube audience to cover them more. And somebody who knows the team well reached out to me and asked me if I would like to do some kind of strategic partnership with them. And I said no, but I said, look, I really like the project. I'll cover it. It's the kind of project I like, but their market cap is so high. I'm just not going to buy the token. Even if you give me a discount on buying it, I just not going to hold it. I want to be in projects that are up a lot more. So I only take on strategic partners where I like the token. I like the project fundamentally, and I like SUI fundamentally a lot. But also my second criteria is that it's a token that I would myself hold. And maybe I could have said yes to this, but because in the next cycle, this is exactly the type of project that I'll have some of my portfolio, blue chip ones that I think have a decent upside. And I think SUI does have a decent upside. But, I really like this project. And so I say good things about it, not because of any offer they made to me, but because I really like it. For those that are holding blue chips, I still want to cover blue chips that I think I would hold if that were part of my strategy.
Yeah. Technically, it's looking really good. We've got this previous high. It's flirting with a new all-time high. It's very close to it where it is now. The trend started on the 4th of August. I can't remember when we last talked about this, but it definitely looks positive. So for me, this is a buy. And I think the real signal was here at just over $1. that's where this base was formed. But it's really nice the way it did the spike on the 5th of August and then consolidated, made the base, and it's been trending up. Of course, you're going to have a pullback, can't go up every day, but it's just knocking on these all-time high levels. And yeah, and in terms of performance as well, it's outperforming other markets, which is what I look for, which is what I like. I like the fact that it's outperforming, and I know that can change, and I know it will change. At some point it will underperform, a bit like the way the Nasdaq stocks were outperforming for a long time, the traditional stocks, and then you get this switch around where they underperform for a bit, and the the main bellwether stocks then start to move up again. So it's a push-pull sort of situation. But yeah, I like it. And I was trying to remember who it was, one of the viewers who was asking about this. I think it was somebody, could have been called Veronica, I'm not sure. It was something Williams. Maybe that was this the one that was on the podcast, on a podcast that she heard about? I'm not sure. Anyway, I've got some vague recollection of that being the case. But anyway, chart looks good, and that's the main thing. It looks like it's going to go higher, so it's a buy.
Yeah, SUI is the beneficiary of a lot of the Facebook research for Meta, that they were looking at launching their own token, and that didn't go well for them with regulators around the world, not just the US. And they're like, no, we're not going to give Facebook that much power. They already have too much power. So SUI got was the beneficiary of the hundreds of millions of dollars of research into a blockchain. And really, I like the way SUI is launched. I think they're going to be a really good chain. There's a lot of projects migrating to it. I think probably this is one around for the future. The price chart looks good, breaking previous highs. There's a lot of on it. Like, now, is it in what I'm investing? No, it's just too high of a market cap. It's at a $6.5 billion market cap. It was pretty juicy down here at like 40 cents. But even then, the market cap was still pretty high. So now it's trading at 5x that number. So, it just isn't a buy. Now, if I were holding blue chips and I was looking for something, and I'd be happy if it just 4x or 10x from here, then SUI would be very, very attractive to me. Because could SUI 4x from here in a greater bull run? Probably it can 4x and maybe do better than that. I'm looking for things that are much riskier, that have greater potential upside than what SUI might have. And maybe SUI 10x's from here. Maybe it does something crazy like a 20 or 30x. Could be. I'm in the riskier stuff, that in an environment where SUI might do a 30x, some of that riskier stuff might do a 60 or 200x. So that's what I'm looking for, is just the bigger gains with the bigger risks. All right. Ooh, Alexis K. Hello from Beirut, Lebanon. Awesome to have you here, Alexis K. Thanks for joining us. Next guy says, Drive migrated from SUI chain, but not had any tokens back on the new chain yet. Have you? I don't think I have. I did do the migration. I can't say I'm overly pleased with my Drive investment. They essentially were giving the signs of a company that had run out of money during the bear market. And I think they were getting they're a good idea with some good implementation, but realize that a lot of early stage businesses run out of money, even if the team is good and their idea is good. Sometimes they just don't manage their cash flows, or they just don't have enough funds to make it through. And Drive was giving those signs. So I think SUI was rewarding projects for bringing over their things. So maybe there was some kind of incentive for them to come over to SUI. But when they migrated the tokens over, essentially they made existing token holders go through a new vesting phase with your tokens. That did not make me very happy. I did not like to see that. Now, I would prefer to see that over them just closing the doors and going out of business, which is often what happens. So I'd like that they continue to operate Whereas probably their other option was to close the doors and go out of business, which then meant my tokens would go to zero. And that often happens in this riskier space. So probably they made the best decision that they had available to them. And I would rather see those tokens become worth something than nothing. Am I investing more in Drive right now? No. Do I hope they make it? Yes. I'm not selling those tokens. And by the time I realized what was going on, I couldn't really sell them anyway. So will I sell them as I get them? No, I'll probably just let it ride and see what happens with that. Didn't love that, but realizing the options they were probably facing, it was probably the best option for them to pursue. I did reach out on behalf of our Rainmaker family. I didn't love the response I got from the team, which is like, I was pretty upset about them making us go through vesting again. And that wasn't really fair to us. And she said, rest assured, I will make the best decision for the community. In other words, I'll make the best decision for the company to survive, and sorry if you get thrown under the bus in the meantime, is really how I read that. And I didn't love that answer, though I understand it. I still didn't like it. So anyway, hope they survive. That is with early stage. Realizing the crypto space, you're really just early stage business investing. A lot of people don't realize that, and they're gambling on meme coins and other things. I'm here for fundamental companies that have a chance to make it. And if they do make it, they can go really, really big, realizing that some won't make it and they don't. So great. Appreciate you bringing that up. Roman Z asks, is there any potential way to identify that Bitcoin bull cycle is approaching the end of it? I know that we are currently in a start/middle of a current one. That's a great question to ask Paul while he's here with us.
Sure. Yeah, well, you mentioned before the 4-year cycle, so it could be a cyclical thing. But ultimately, what I look for is sentiment, overly bullish sentiment, and a topping pattern in the actual markets themselves. So the sign will come when Bitcoin is in a massive range, like a big volatile range, not making new highs, and everyone's really, really bullish, like talking about all the projects that are working and everything else. And it's at that point that the market is giving you a sign that it's ready to reverse. So I would say sentiment and charts. That's why I look at charts. It will tell you there will be this disparity. And I think before we see the end of it, there will be usually the end of a big bull market. You get very crazy, super bullish things happening, like really over the top. Now, it's to say over the top in the crypto world is actually quite difficult, but you will see some really over the top behavior. And that could be representative of the market in general, because stocks are going to be up and everything else too. But as a general sign, you start to see the warning signs as the price action starts to struggle to make new highs, yet the stories are really, really bullish.
Yeah. Like I often share the story of one of my mentors in investment, and specifically real estate investment. He was worth a couple $100 million at the time. And he talked about how he would determine if real estate was good to invest in a market or bad. And he'd fly into that market and he would go to get his haircut at the salon. Why? Salon is like the melting pot of discussion where like current sentiment is at. And he would ask them to cut it, as they were cutting his hair. And he had long hair, like a long ponytail. So he'd probably just have a little bit trimmed off. And he would ask them, oh, what's going on with real estate? And if everyone in there was like, oh, real estate's great, you got to get in. My friend has 3 homes. They're making so much money. He's like, oh, okay, the market was not interesting. Why? Because clearly it's at a high, and that's a sign that it's at a high. If he went in and they're like, oh my gosh, real estate's terrible, everyone is doing bad. If he heard those kind of things, that was his sign to stick around and extend his stay and to really look for some good deals and investigate the market further. That also applies to crypto. If you're going to get your hair cut and everyone there is talking about Bitcoin being amazing and crypto's amazing and everyone's making so much money, that's a really good sign that Bitcoin is probably near a collapse. And real estate falls slower than crypto does. Crypto from 1 week to the next can see a 70% correction downward. It's quite fast. So if you're seeing those kind of signs and everyone's super bullish that crypto will never stop going up, that is my sign that like it is time to get the hell out. Take profits, diversify out, because the crashes are quite extreme. They're not fun. Now, I extracted a bunch of profits last time. There was a lot more I could have extracted, and I wish I had done it sooner. Oh, well, you know, I learned very good in the 2017, 2018 run. I did much better the next run. And yeah, we'll see how this next one goes. But I'm very aware of how quick the corrections can come. All right, let's jump back to some of the ones requested. MVE was very concerned about OMI, as was Howard. Let's take a look at OMI's price.
Yeah, just to close off the discussion that Roman asked. Yeah, it was interesting in this range, and I think I talked about it when it happened, that I was asked whether I was still bullish, and that was to me a really interesting question. And also, if you look at the headlines, there was a lot of people saying that was it. You know, market was going to go down, and we were in a bear market. And so when the market held up, like usually this sort of volatility would indicate a top, but it was actually sentiment and the fact that other markets were still moving up, like the stock markets, that suggested to me that risk on was still a play. So it's putting a few pieces together that, and also you're not guaranteed to be right. You can't get it right all the time. No one can. But that was what led me to believe that this was more like a bullish move than the start of a big bearish move. So over to OMI. Yeah, you can pretty much guess what I'm going to say. The trend is still down. So definitely a wait for me. We've actually broken quite conclusively through another support point that it was holding around. And to be fair, you know, on a day like today, not everything's moved up, but I would have expected some form of reaction, positive reaction. And it's, unless this has not been updated. No, it hasn't actually. No, there you go. So that could be a you know, a sign that I just haven't got an up-to-date price. So let me go over to CoinGecko and see what it says. Yeah, so it's still looking soft, and the trend is still down for me. So yeah, definitely a wait.
Yeah, the trend has not reversed here. So it can be really scary for a lot of people during this. Clearly and we're not necessarily done with price action, though this recent capitulation might signal the end of it. It may not. So realize that OMI is still falling, and a lot of people see this as a bad thing. Let me share this chart. This is where I declared Senate. So way back in this time frame, October of 2023, I said, wow, fundamentally, Senate is an amazing buy. I was like, look, it could get cheaper from here, but it is such an incredible buy. It's amazing. It's under 2 cents. Whoa. Are you there?
Yeah.
Oh, my computer just did some weird things.
Yeah.
I don't know.
We heard it beep, but you were still
there.
Yeah.
Let's say hello to the CIA, who, you know, probably tapped in my computer. Hello, whoever's watching. Yeah. No, I have no idea. That was weird. I don't know what that was. So Senate going down like this, and I said, fundamentally, see, I'm a fundamental investor. I said, look, it could get cheaper from here. I don't know where the end is, but I think the value is there. Now, it happened to be that blockchain gaming really took off after that. And it didn't have to go that way, but the narrative then hit. It could have gotten cheaper, and it would have had blockchain gaming not hit. But we see now, like, that point was right here. And then it went crazy and went 20x from here. Well, what does OMI's chart look like? Not too different from that, where it just looks like essentially this, right? Where this is like the average, and it just continues down. And you're not wrong. It just continues down. But the conclusion many draw from that is wrong. And the conclusion can be summed up in what's called recency bias, which is what's going down is just going to continue to go down. And doesn't this show you that recency bias doesn't continue going down for forever? At some point, the narrative reverses. And look, it's only 2x up from where it was. So it popped off, went 20x, and it pulled back down. Why? We're not in the greater bull run yet. In the greater bull run, so I invest for periods of 2 to 3 years sometimes. And in the short term, I don't hope that the price goes up. I hope that the price gets cheaper. And OMI is an amazing example of what I hope for. So many people get this wrong. They want to be right so bad, and they want proof that they're right, rather than they want to be even more rich. And what it looks like to become even more rich, if you're investing in a good company with good fundamentals and you're waiting for the greater bull run to take profits. In the meantime, wouldn't you prefer to have it get cheaper rather than more expensive? Well, I would, because then I can continue to dollar cost average and get even cheaper prices than I ever thought possible. But a lot of people who are new to crypto haven't learned to think that way. And it helps that prior to crypto, I had 17 years experience in other markets. And now with crypto, a total of 24 years investing in cycles and investment assets that have cycles. And so I learned to think that way over time, that like in the meantime, even if I make a bunch of buys and I load up, I don't want it to get more expensive from there. I actually want it to get cheaper, because my time frame of when I'm going to sell isn't till probably sometime next year, when the market is going crazy and people at the hair salon are talking about Bitcoin, and maybe they're even talking about OMI. And at that price, that's when I know to be getting the hell out. And so in the meantime, I'd rather the price gets cheaper. Now, I know I see the arguments on Twitter about OMI's price and, oh my gosh, and it's so bad. Cool. We'll see how it shakes out. And you'll realize where I was coming from on this. And you'd be like, oh my gosh, I wish I could have understood that then, but at least you'll then understand it, because this won't be your last chance in crypto and things going this way. But once you understand that, now one of the key components of that has to be a business that isn't going out of business, because a business that does end up going out of business could also look very much like this. And dollar cost averaging into that is going to wreck you. So what makes me think that the underlying business behind this isn't going out of business? Well, because they have some of the strongest revenues in the whole crypto space. Like, there couldn't be a starker contrast to most of the crypto space, where they don't have a product out there that actually brings them incoming revenues at all. They're hoping down the road they will have something that brings them incoming revenues. Contrast that with DEVVE and their app, which continues to make monthly revenues that are crazy versus most of the crypto space. And so I don't see evidence that their actual underlying business is going out of business. The evidence is actually that the underlying business is really quite strong. So this creates an environment that I get more excited than ever, that I'm like, OMI is incredible. So though you had some comments, and, you probably, you really do wish Randy well here. It says, Howard says, I feel bad for Randy. It's sad to witness. He's lost his life savings. You're not correct on that. Check in on him. His heart is in the right place. His heart is in the right place, but he hasn't lost his life savings. He's invested a whole bunch of it into OMI, and OMI's price is down. Now, if he sold it at this price, then he would be massively, massively down. But you're assuming that the price is just going to keep going down from here. And I don't know why you're making that assumption, other than recency bias, because at some point it will come into the narrative, just like we saw Senate come into the narrative. And Senate, even though it wasn't the greater bull run, even in that little mini pump, went 10x from there. So when digital collectibles comes in the narrative, I expect OMI will have quite the reversal of this price action, which is quite astoundingly bad, right? When you're just looking at the price action, you're like, oh my gosh, what a devastating loss. Until all of a sudden it reverses and goes way to the upside. And then it's like, oh my gosh, all those people that were buying down at these lows were brilliant. And we're still waiting for that time to happen. And many suspect that it will never happen. I would say the odds are extremely good, especially because the project has so much monthly incoming revenues versus most of the crypto space. I don't see why it's going to do bad. So, back to MVE's original comment, just wow, looks like OMI is slowly rugging. I will clarify the words you use. Precision matters to me a lot. A rug pull is something very different than this. Now, when the price is going down, when you use the word rugging, that is the incorrect word for this. A rug pull is when the company takes all your money and runs off with it. There's no evidence that the company is running off with the money and that they're rug pulling anything. And so just wrong word to use. You could say it's slowly decreasing, it keeps declining. That would all be correct words. You said, you can tell me whatever you want. This is no joke. Hard lesson for me. Don't ever marry your bags. That is a good lesson on marrying your bags. In marrying your bags, you got to keep your eyes wide open. Is this project behind it going to fail? Now, I'm not personally seeing evidence of that. Maybe you're seeing something that I'm not seeing, but I've spent a lot of time at, I just spent some time in New York with the founders and everything and the people that work for them. I think the business is really, really quite strong. We're just seeing an overcorrection to the downside on price. Last bull run, they massively went up to the upside. And so the pendulum swings too far each way. So it swung too far to the upside. Now it's swinging too far to the downside. I love that there's that kind of volatility in the crypto space. That's what makes for major gains, is that sometimes when the price gets cheap, it then gets too cheap. And that's when I love to buy at those levels. So I think OMI is an incredible value for my own personal portfolio. If it's not for you, that's totally fine too. I continue to dollar cost average and load up on OMI and continue to strengthen my bags there. And I suspect it's going to do extremely well for me. I personally like the odds for me extremely well. I think Randy is going to be really just fine. And there will be a lot of people who owe him some apologies for how much they fudded on him. Cool. Roman Z, the people want price cheaper, but they think that if the price continue to go down, that means that the asset has issues or it will go to zero. That is exactly the conclusion that they draw. And that's why crypto really, for some people, it isn't right for them. It's so hard holding in when they see price action like this. It just drains their soul because they become so attached to it and they let their emotions get attached to it instead of like keeping emotional distance and realize that the pendulum swings too far to each side. And especially because OMI had such a huge price run up last time. It wasn't clear that it would come down this cheap, but it's clear now that it would be this cheap. And maybe that price action does not yet turned around. It might get cheaper. I suggest that that's a good thing, but a lot of people don't understand that logic yet. They're just newer to cycle investing like this. Roman Z says exactly, the business has to stay alive. And that would be my worry. If I were seeing signs that the business was going to die, I would be very worried. Yes. Howard, I appreciate your answer. I hope you're right. It's just they don't ever mention the token. Yes. And specifically, they don't ever mention the token to keep out of the SEC's crosshairs. Now, hopefully there's some regulatory clarity. I would actually be very concerned if they were mentioning the token all the time. That would be the wrong action for them to be taking. They have way too much visibility. I know there's a lot of projects out there with $4 million market caps that don't have big deals with Disney and Marvel and DC Comics and other things, that don't have the visibility of OMI, that mention their token all the time and mention it going to the moon, which would put them in the crosshairs of the SEC if they had bigger visibility, but they're so small, the SEC doesn't care about them. OMI has way too much visibility. If they were talking about their token in the way that the SEC, current SEC, could construe that in any way, shape, or form to be that it is a security, they would absolutely be served with a Wells notice and probably be facing a lawsuit against the SEC. And that would then be draining their coffers, and all their incoming revenues would then be going to fighting the SEC. So I feel quite differently than you, that if they were talking about the token all the time, that's when I would worry. It doesn't worry me at all that they're not talking about the token. The token will do just fine as long as the business continues to do fine. And then digital collectibles comes into the narrative. All right. I've been talking a lot on that one, but yes, this is never a Paul buy zone when he sees this kind of price action. Paul wants confirmation that the price is going the other way, and Paul never buys the bottom, and it's okay, right? His model works extremely well and has worked very well for 30 years. One of the benefits we have on having Paul coming in, very, very different methodology to how he invests. And it's been a successful model, and he's very strict with his model in that he wants confirmation that the price has turned around, is happy not buying the bottom, is happy buying when the price has turned around, and the probabilities are on his side that the price is going to continue to the upside, which is also another model. And I like sharing with all of you because, look, the way I invest isn't for everyone, and there are a lot of people who will get a lot of benefit from how Paul looks at things. And so it's about creating the most informed audience in crypto was my greater goal and vision with this channel. Yeah, and hopefully the audience with the highest gains out of all the other audiences, but it has to do with what choices you make and how things turn out. So
I think the key thing to remember is it's whatever you have to have a strategy. And there are people who just buy blindly as the market's going down because they don't know what they're doing, and there's no strategy there to dollar cost average. But the reason why we don't do it, or I don't do it with technicals, is because I'm not looking at any of the fundamentals. So there is a difference. If that's part of your strategy, you're not just deciding day to day on a whim that you're going to do it. It's a well thought out reasoned strategy. Now that doesn't mean it's guaranteed to work. It's just that that's what works for you. And I think that's the problem with trying to adopt someone else's strategy, just saying, oh, because that person says it, I'm going to do it. That's why people tend to feel uncomfortable, because they're not really confident with why you're doing it in the first place. And when things start to go wrong, they're not comfortable with the original strategy. And so for that reason, it's why everybody has to do what works for them, which is kind of what you were saying. If it's a really aggressive strategy that if you get it right, it will pay hugely. And for those types of strategies, there's only a very few people who will be willing to take them. But also to be able to see the difference between the ones that are going to zero and the ones that have got potential to turn around. But that's something that you've thought about before going in. So some people are technical, some people are fundamental, some people mix the two. Everybody's different. I think that's how you got to approach the markets and make your own choices, really. But yeah, it is interesting. But having said that, by the way, I've been trying to find a chart for the part, what is going to be the final one that we look at, FIAS, for Justin, and I can't get an up-to-date chart anywhere. So I'm a bit concerned that either I'm not looking in the right place, or I don't know what to say. Really.
I'm glad he brought it up so we can address FIAS. So FIAS's vesting contract was hacked. So they used a third party to create a vesting contract, and it was hacked. And so the token, do not buy it right now. It is not buyable right now, because what they're doing is they're minting a new token, and they're going to airdrop it to the holders as of the moment before the hack. And so if you buy it right now, you're wasting your money. It'll just be gone, and because you won't be getting the new token. So you have to wait till the new token is out there and stable and figure out if it's a good buy at that price. Then, is it buyable now? No, it's not. Do I believe in its future? Yes, but they have to get through this hack period. And many great companies have had hacks like this happen. And this is one of the problems. I don't know what the security breach was that led to the hack of the token vesting contract, but somebody was able to get access to it, drain the tokens, and then dump them on the different markets it was on. And the truth is, like, it's kind of like skin diving for gold that's at the bottom of the ocean, and all the sharks come in. And there are tons of sharks around here because this is where all the people are, because where all the gold is. But there are tons of sharks in the crypto space. Like, I got a text this morning that's like, oh, your Coinbase account was just accessed. You know, if this wasn't you, text such and such, or text back this, and we will give you a call to straighten it out. That is absolutely a scam. So they're going to call me and they're going to say, oh, what's your Coinbase login? Da, 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 just to confirm it's you. And then they're going to go into my Coinbase account and drain my Coinbase account. Like, there are so many different scammers out there. You find in every one of my videos, you'll find a whole bunch, like 17 comments shilling some coin. As soon as I add it to like the list that doesn't show up in the comments anymore, they just change the name of a token, create a new site, and like they do it immediately. I think it's they program bots to do it, because like, so I don't even go in and clean out the comments all the time anymore, because as soon as I do that, it's just a different one, and I can't keep up to whatever bot they program to do it. So realize the number of scammers and hackers out there are huge, and they're all looking to take your money. Why? Because this is where the money's being made. So
it's a really good point. It's also a really good point that in the next in this next year that's coming up, there's going to be so much more. They're going to be more aggressive than ever. They're going to try everything. So just be really careful. That's another sign. Actually, going back to Roman's comment, that's another sign that you get more and more of this as you approach the top.
Yeah, they want your money and they want to take it. And so they, most of the Rainmaker family have become pretty sophisticated at this, but we've had one or two examples where they were just newer. And if you're not watching videos on how to keep your crypto safe, you should be watching those. I don't cover that. That's not my area of expertise. I really love the economics side. I love cycle investing, and I'll share with you everything about that. Is this the only crypto channel you should be watching? No. If you're not watching channels on like what all the different scams are out there and how to protect yourself and how to not fall for the phishing stuff, like, then you might fall victim to that. And no, I'm not going to cover that. That's not what I'm good at. That's not what I enjoy doing. So there are other people that love covering that stuff, and that's just not my forte. But I will cover the most important thing, which I think is the economic side of what's going on. And I'll share with you how I trade things. Now, my risk tolerance is really high because I've been doing cycle investing for a long time. And my specific methodology works for some people, but many it doesn't work for. They don't have the patience or the fortitude to stick it out, and they end up selling at lows and taking the punishing loss, and then don't get to experience the upside. And that's pretty sad when that happens. Paul, thank you for joining us. I was really excited for the show and to cover Bitcoin as it breaks through some new highs and speculate on where it might go from here.
Always a pleasure. Thanks, guys. Thanks for the picks. See you next week.
All right. Thanks, Paul.
Thank you.
All right. So overall, I'm going to share with you my methodology, and this doesn't work for everyone, but I'll share with you kind of my results in crypto. So I started in crypto in 2017, and I didn't know what I was doing, and I just turned into whatever YouTube channels, and it seems like they knew what was going on because they had a YouTube channel. And I realized that a lot of people on YouTube don't have an investment background. They don't really understand cycles. And there's a lot they didn't know. So it was a lot of the blind leading the blind. And hey, I was new to this too. I didn't know what to expect. And so I'd like to think I made some decent choices, and I invested about 15,000. It went to about 160, 175,000. And well, that was the top. And then it corrected to the downside and went to about 3,000. And I over time realized that, crypto follows this 4-year cycle. About every 4 years, it seems to go, or it has been going massively crazy, and it has a massive pullback. Oh, that's just like real estate has cycles, other markets have cycles. So I was like, wow, okay, well, the way you get rich in cycle investing is you identify good projects when things are low, and then you hold them till the market goes absolutely crazy. And so that's what I decided to do. And from 2018 through 2020, I put in about $150,000. Now, that was about $50,000 a year. I was literally living off of like beans and rice and putting as much as I could in. Like everything I could was going to savings, or in other words, my investments. But because I was buying low, as you see, it sometimes goes lower. And that $150,000 turned into about $30,000 as prices continued to fall. But don't feel too bad for me, because after that bottom at $30,000, guess what happened? Well, 2020 started to look a little bit bullish, and then 2021 went absolutely crazy. And from the bottom, my portfolio went about 100x. Cool. So like, is Randy going to be just fine? Yeah, my guess is he is. Does it feel good when you put 150,000 in and it's worth $30,000? It feels like crap. But it's just part of investing low, realizing that sometimes it then goes lower. And the last thing I did at that point was sell at those prices. Now, unfortunately, with what I had bought, almost two-thirds of what I bought went to zero. Why? Well, the crypto space has so much shit out there. And I didn't know how to, like, I didn't yet know what was what, and I was too new. And I didn't have any great YouTube channels that really covered this stuff well. So I wasn't able to leverage some people that really had it figured out, leverage their knowledge. And so I invested in meme coins and some other high risk projects with some of those. And guess what? Most of the meme coin ones failed. I learned some very valuable lessons there. I invested in some other things that absolutely failed and went to zero. But the third of my portfolio that absolutely went crazy fell mostly in a certain category. There were projects between 1 to 5 years old that had been absolutely punished during the bear market, their token has. But they had a strong team, they had a strong narrative, and they were working hard during the bear market. So when I saw that pattern, this last bear market, that's what I've 100% been focusing on. Projects that fit in that category, that their project token has been out for 1 to 5 years. Their token has absolutely been punished by the bear market, but they have a strong team, a strong narrative, strong founders, and they're working hard during the bear market. Ecomi really falls in there. And there's a lot of other projects that really fall in there, like Bumper, like Definity, like some other ones. And so their prices, like Bumper's price is abysmally low right now. I see that as a good thing. Omi's price is abysmally low right now. I see that as a good thing. Realize that I started buying Cardano at 11 cents. It went all the way to 1.7 cents at the bottom. That did not feel great, other than I was able to load up the boats tremendously at 3 cents, turning that big reversal in price into a really, really big gain as it went over 100x from the bottom from there. Cool. So what are you doing as prices are good? Well, I believe in Omi. It's up to you whether you do. Bumper, I believe in Bumper's future, but cool, you may not, and that's okay. Like, make whatever choices feel right to you. I am not your financial advisor, and I'm not going to tell you what choices to make. I'm only sharing with you the choices I'm making, the risks that I see, the upside that I guess might be possible, and I'm making some guesses for myself on what these would do, but you get to make your own informed decision on what you do. And maybe my methodology isn't right for you at all. Realize, though, that 2/3 of my stuff failed, and yet I still made 100x from the bottom, or overall from what I'd put in, about a 20x return, even knowing that 2/3 of what I invested in went to zero. And so that's why I like that methodology. Now, hopefully my results are even better this time, as I totally stayed away from meme coins. I stayed away from some of those riskier projects. Most of those went to zero. Now, some of the stuff I invested in has gone to zero or close to zero. A few projects that I'm in. Cool. That's the risk when you're early stage business investing. That's going to happen sometimes, but nowhere near 2/3 of it. So I don't know what my numbers look like as far as failures this bull run, but realize there may be a few more failures out there. Maybe Drive goes to zero. Maybe something else goes to zero, but that strategy overall worked really good for me last time. I think it's going to work even better as I focused in particularly on what part of my portfolio outperformed everything else. And I focused almost everything into that. So I'm looking forward to this bull run. It's going to be a wild ride. And I appreciate many of you joining us, because that's helped us get something special. When I created this channel, I realized that in order to make even better investment decisions, I needed to be able to reach out to the teams and get information from the teams and ask them questions. So if you were able to join us yesterday, we had an interview with OneChain CEO. These interviews are super helpful. If you're also part of the Patreon and then connect up to the Discord, in the Discord, we were able to have a private conversation with Tim from OneChain, the CEO of OneChain, and talk to him and get a lot of inside information. And that's the beauty of the Discord if you're part of the Discord. In order to do that, you have to join Patreon, which then is the gatekeeper for the Discord. But the kind of information you can get from the teams, both in interviews, but then behind the scenes interviews, well, they will often share even more information than what you can get in public interviews. Well, it gives you good information so you can make more informed decisions. And I love that. Aster, I'm just wrapping up here, but if you join like next Wednesday or another episode where I'm live and ask that question, I could take a look at that. I'm not familiar off the top of my head in this project. Appreciate you asking. I can look at it some other time. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Brace yourselves because this ride is going to get crazy, especially if Trump is seated in the U.S. and he replaces Gary Gensler at the U.S. with a pro-crypto person. Crypto was already going to be good next year. Looks like crypto might get really great this coming year. We'll see y'all soon. Enjoy this wrap. It's a fun way just to reinforce these principles that I share. These principles make all the difference when used properly. Thanks so much.
Came into the space chasing all of the games, chasing the pumps and all of the hype trains. But like in life, you buy before you could. Was told to buy when it was pouring like a rainmaker should. I buy when it's down, don't chase the boats that I miss. Cause I always made the time in mind. I take the one out cause I'm patient like that. And I'll wait for the right time. I sell when it's high, I buy when it's low. They call me rich, they call me smart. I'm just a rainmaker running the show. Calculated investments, I don't leave with my heart. The principles are simple, they're leaving a mark. Buy when it's boring, just gotta be smart. I sell when it's hype, like all the channels they pump it. That's when I was selling a parabolic to dump it. They call me rich, they call me smart. I'm a rainmaker, making my own start. I'm with the future, learning the past. Makes the time fly by, years going so fast. The game plan is mine, I'll own it now. When I reach the top, haters asking me how. Cause I'm a rainmaker, investments I love. And I follow what I learn, not relying on luck. Time is never better, but time like the present. The next 5 years is a gift and it's feeling like heaven. I'm committed to learn, to study and to know that nothing comes easy, but with knowledge the game show. Sticking out this wrong could soon become a bear market. Learning and growing, and when it's slow would be the target. They say it's come out, Bitcoin is dead. The massive decreases can get to your head. Sticking around, the time is better. I'm strong like that, I'll let the others be fretters. 2 years time, the ball will bring back the gains. That makes it worth the effort, cause here comes the rain. So let's go rainmakers, let's make it all happen. Let go of the hate, say the haters be crapping. I'm here for 5 years, let's do this together. The time is right, the time could be better. They call me rich, they call me smart. I'm a rainmaker, making my own start. I'm with the future, learning the past. Makes the time fly by, years going so fast. The game plan is mine, I'll own it now. When I reach the top, haters asking me how. Cause I'm a rainmaker, investments I love. And I follow what I learn, not relying on luck. Haters be hating, the time to slow down. Addressing what they say when I'm wearing my crown. They're chasing green candles like someone who was new. I got a vision that was bigger, helping me to push through. I'm still human and sometimes it is rough. And that's what makes me special, simply I stay tough. Cause I'm a rainmaker, investments I love. And I follow what I learn, not relying on luck.